In a surprising move in early 2025, Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, was appointed to head a newly created government body, the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. This appointment came as part of President Donald Trump's push to streamline the federal government, reduce waste, and implement financial reforms that would cut unnecessary spending. The establishment of DOGE was seen by many as a bold step toward revitalizing a bloated bureaucracy that had been criticized for inefficiency, fraud, and outdated systems. Musk's reputation for transforming industries with a futuristic, tech-driven approach positioned him as the ideal candidate for this ambitious role. He was tasked with identifying inefficiencies, cutting unnecessary spending, and introducing technologies that could modernize outdated governmental systems. Musk's promise was audacious. He claimed that DOGE could save the federal government up to $1 trillion in just the first year of operations. The announcement was met with mixed reactions. Many were skeptical about Musk's ability to navigate the intricacies of the federal system, while others were hopeful that his leadership could bring meaningful change. DOGE's initial focus was on identifying and eliminating waste, particularly within the healthcare, education, and social security programs. One of Musk's early strategies was to introduce AI-driven auditing tools to scrutinize spending patterns across various government agencies. This led to the identification of billions of dollars in fraud within government contracts and social welfare programs, sparking a national conversation about the extent of waste in federal operations. Musk also pushed for more transparency in government spending, advocating for the public release of detailed reports on how taxpayer money was being allocated. His transparency initiative was designed to hold government agencies accountable, and it was met with overwhelming support from the public. However, some critics argued that Musk was overstepping his bounds by using his private sector methods and technologies in a public sector setting. The backlash grew as Musk's control over DOGE expanded and his influence over government decisions deepened. While Musk was focused on reforming government spending, another challenge arose: questions surrounding the ethical implications of his dual role as both a private businessman and a government official. His leadership of DOGE raised concerns about the potential for conflicts of interest, as Musk's companies, including Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink, stood to benefit from any government contracts that resulted from the changes DOGE implemented. In addition, Musk's extensive involvement with his other ventures, particularly Tesla, led some to wonder if his attention was being divided between his private enterprises and his public duties. Despite these concerns, Musk pressed on with his reforms, arguing that his business acumen and innovative mindset were precisely what the government needed. His defenders pointed out that Musk was already operating with the principles of efficiency and innovation that had turned his private companies into some of the most successful in the world. They argued that Musk was uniquely qualified to apply those same principles to the government, which had long been seen as sluggish and resistant to change. As Musk's efforts gained traction, the media began to focus on the real-world impact of DOGE's initiatives. The public saw tangible results. The government reported savings in excess of $100 billion within the first 3 months of DOGE's existence, with more projected savings as Musk's reforms took hold. The most significant savings came from the Department of Health and Human Services, where a series of wasteful contracts were terminated, and from the General Services Administration, where long-overdue technology upgrades were implemented. Musk's success with DOGE, however, was not without its controversies. One of the most notable clashes came when Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas publicly criticized Musk's influence on government operations. Crockett, a rising star in the Democratic Party, was outspoken about the potential dangers of a private individual, especially someone as wealthy and powerful as Musk, wielding so much influence over federal agencies. She argued that Musk's privatization of government services could lead to a system where corporate interests took precedence over the needs of the American people. In a speech at a congressional hearing in March 2025, Crockett expressed her concerns about Musk's leadership of DOGE, stating, "When a billionaire is allowed to control government spending, we risk the fundamental principles of democracy. We cannot let private corporations dictate the future of our country." Crockett's comments drew applause from her supporters but were met with harsh criticism from Musk's allies, who accused her of being a political obstructionist. Meanwhile, Musk was undeterred. He defended his approach to government reform, arguing that the current system was outdated and inefficient. He emphasized that DOGE's reforms were about putting taxpayers first, not about enriching private companies. "I didn't get into this to make money. I got into this to make a difference," Musk stated in a press conference. If we don't fix the inefficiencies in our government, we will continue to waste the hard-earned dollars of American taxpayers. But as the debate over Doge's role in the government intensified, another layer was added to the controversy. Musk's involvement in the cryptocurrency world, particularly with Dogecoin, Doge, began to spark new concerns. Musk was known for his vocal support of Dogecoin, and some critics feared that his role in Doge could be influenced by his interests in the cryptocurrency market. It became clear that Musk's leadership of Doge was not only reshaping government efficiency, but also raising questions about the intersection of technology, finance, and public policy. This new development prompted a series of emergency hearings in Congress, where lawmakers called for an investigation into the potential conflicts of interest surrounding Musk's leadership of Doge. Lawmakers were particularly concerned about the extent to which Musk's personal financial interests in Dogecoin could influence his decision-making in the government efficiency department. With Dogecoin's fluctuating value often tied to Musk's public statements, some feared that his push for Doge could be a veiled attempt to boost the value of his cryptocurrency investments. The situation came to a head when a report surfaced suggesting that Musk had used his position to direct government contracts to companies associated with Dogecoin. Although no concrete evidence was found linking Musk directly to these transactions, the allegations were enough to spark a public outcry. Critics demanded that Musk step down from his position as head of Doge, arguing that his continued involvement in both the public and private sectors presented a clear conflict of interest. As the pressure mounted, Musk made a bold move. He called for an emergency ruling on the matter. In a public statement, he announced that Doge would undergo a full audit to ensure that all contracts and spending decisions were made with complete transparency. He also pledged to divest from any personal financial interests that could create a conflict with his public duties. I understand the concerns, and I want to assure the American people that my role in Doge is about serving the public good, not advancing my personal interests, Musk stated. With the fate of Doge hanging in the balance, the government was left to grapple with the broader question of how to balance private sector innovation with public sector accountability. The outcome of the investigation into Musk's involvement would determine the future of Doge and, by extension, the future of government reform in the Trump administration. As the pressure surrounding Elon Musk's leadership of the Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, intensified, the conflict reached a boiling point. The ongoing debate about the potential for corruption, Musk's involvement in Dogecoin, and the growing public scrutiny over his government ties culminated in an emergency ruling, called for by none other than Representative Jasmine Crockett herself. Crockett, who had been a staunch critic of Musk's control over Doge, quickly emerged as the leading voice calling for immediate government intervention. In a high-stakes legislative session, Crockett stood in front of a packed congressional committee, demanding that an independent investigation be launched to scrutinize Musk's influence within the government. This is not about whether we like Elon Musk or whether we support Dogecoin, Crockett declared passionately. This is about the very integrity of our government. We cannot allow one man, no matter how wealthy or influential, to control the levers of power in a democracy. That is not what this country stands for. Her words echoed across the chamber, as the room erupted in applause from her fellow Democrats. The Republican side, however, sat in stern silence, knowing that Musk had the support of President Trump and many powerful GOP allies, including high-profile lawmakers and business leaders. Musk had become a lightning rod for both political sides, his influence undeniable, yet divisive. Crockett's call for an emergency ruling was aimed at suspending Musk's oversight of Doge until an independent, bipartisan investigation could take place. She argued that the potential conflicts of interest between Musk's financial holdings in Dogecoin and his position in government made it impossible for him to be trusted in his current role. There is no transparency here, Crockett emphasized. We are gambling with taxpayers' money, and it's being directed by a private individual with a vested interest in the very cryptocurrencies that could be benefiting from these reforms. The American people deserve better than this. The ruling would not only impact Musk's leadership of Doge, but also set the stage for a much larger debate on the role of billionaires in shaping public policy. This was the moment when the tensions between corporate power and governmental responsibility became impossible to ignore. With a backdrop of public outcry and partisan divide, the situation became the talk of the nation. The call for an emergency investigation was not just political rhetoric, it was backed by a coalition of both Democrat and Republican lawmakers who saw Musk's actions as a potential threat to the sanctity of governmental operations. The U.S. Treasury Department, under pressure from Congress, agreed to launch a full audit of DOGE's activities, focusing specifically on any financial ties between Musk's private companies and the government contracts awarded under his leadership. Meanwhile, Musk was not sitting idly by. Despite the mounting pressure, he took to social media to defend his role. "My work in DOGE is about transparency and efficiency. We are bringing technology to government in ways that have never been done before," Musk tweeted. "I understand the concerns, but rest assured I am committed to doing what is best for the American people. Let the investigation happen. We have nothing to hide." However, as the investigation began, it became clear that Musk's critics were not backing down. In the months that followed, Crockett intensified her efforts, demanding public hearings where Musk would be forced to testify. Her next move was a highly anticipated public showdown, one that would garner widespread media attention. She was calling for Musk to face Congress under oath. A public face-off. In April 2025, the day of the congressional hearing arrived. The committee room was packed with journalists, lawmakers, and supporters of both sides. The drama of the situation was palpable. This was more than just a policy debate. It was a high-stakes confrontation between a powerful billionaire and a determined legislator, with the future of government reform hanging in the balance. Crockett, with her fiery rhetoric and sharp wit, stood before the committee to present her case. Elon Musk has built his fortune by breaking the rules. That is how he became the richest man in the world, she declared. But just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. We are talking about the government of the United States, our taxpayers, our children, our elderly. This is not the private sector. This is not your tech empire. This is about accountability, transparency, and most importantly, trust. The audience could feel the intensity building. Musk, who had arrived with his typical nonchalance, sat across from Crockett, his expression calm yet defiant. He listened intently as Crockett laid out her accusations, the tension in the room growing thick. "If you think I'm going to sit here and let you attack the reforms we've implemented in the name of efficiency, you are mistaken," Musk responded, his voice steady but firm. He turned toward the committee, addressing the members directly. "I didn't come here to run a charity. I came here to fix a broken system. The government is hemorrhaging money and I'm trying to fix it. These reforms are saving taxpayers billions and we've seen results. We have to move past the old way of doing things and we need leaders who understand how to innovate." Musk's supporters in the room applauded his bold statement while those in Crockett's camp remained silent. But Crockett wasn't done. She pushed forward, "This is not about innovation, Elon. This is about the people who will be left behind by your drive for profits. You can't turn government into a private sector playground." The hearing became a battleground for the soul of American governance. On one side, Musk's supporters emphasized efficiency, innovation, and the need to overhaul a stagnant system. On the other, Crockett and her allies warned that unchecked corporate influence could lead to the erosion of democratic values. DOGE's future in question. As the hearing concluded, the fate of DOGE hung in the balance. Musk had proven himself a master at controlling the narrative in the private sector, but could he navigate the complex world of public policy without falling into the traps of corporate cronyism? The emergency ruling requested by Crockett had the potential to alter the trajectory of DOGE and, by extension, Musk's influence within the Trump administration. The question was no longer whether Musk could successfully reform the government, it was whether the American public could trust a billionaire with a personal stake in cryptocurrency to reshape the very systems that govern their lives. With the investigation underway, the coming weeks promised to be crucial in determining the future of DOGE and the balance of power between private industry and the public good. Would Musk be able to maintain his leadership role, or would Crockett's crusade for transparency and accountability prevail? As the investigation into Elon Musk's leadership of DOGE unfolded, tensions reached a new height. Public opinion was divided, with some Americans cheering for Musk's vision of government reform and others questioning the ethical implications of a billionaire having so much influence over public policy. Meanwhile, Representative Jasmine Crockett's crusade against Musk's control over government operations was gaining momentum, particularly as new revelations about Musk's financial dealings in the cryptocurrency world began to surface. The conflict was no longer just about government efficiency, it had evolved into a full-blown crisis of trust. Musk's involvement in cryptocurrency, specifically his support for Dogecoin, was the focal point of the scrutiny. Critics claimed that Musk's position in Doge, coupled with his substantial holdings in Dogecoin, created a glaring conflict of interest. They argued that he was using his government role to influence the value of Dogecoin and other cryptocurrencies, potentially at the expense of American taxpayers. Crockett was relentless in pushing for more transparency, calling for the full disclosure of Musk's financial interests and connections to any companies that had benefited from government contracts. "We cannot afford to let this situation fester," she declared in a heated speech. "Musk's financial empire is now entwined with our government's operations. There is too much at stake to pretend this is just about saving money. This is about the future of our democracy." To make her case stronger, Crockett released a damning report that alleged Musk had used Doge's initiatives to funnel government contracts to companies linked to his private ventures, including SpaceX and Tesla. While Musk denied any wrongdoing, the accusations were enough to fuel a media frenzy. The public's perception of the situation shifted dramatically as more and more people began to question Musk's true motivations. The cryptocurrency debate. The cryptocurrency issue became the central point of contention. Dogecoin had been a subject of Musk's tweets and endorsements for years, and his influence over the coin's value was undeniable. In fact, some analysts argued that Musk's comments alone could cause Dogecoin's price to surge or plummet. Given this, critics wondered whether Musk's push for Doge was a thinly veiled attempt to manipulate the market and increase the value of his own investments. The situation grew even more complicated when it was revealed that Musk had pushed for Doge's adoption as a potential currency for government transactions, especially in relation to the federal government's technological overhaul initiatives. While some praised Musk's forward-thinking approach, others saw it as a dangerous move that could pave the way for cryptocurrency to be used in ways that undermined traditional financial systems. The possibility of Dogecoin becoming a legitimate form of government-backed currency sent shockwaves through the financial world. Senator Elizabeth Warren, a prominent critic of Musk, voiced her concerns during a Senate hearing. "We cannot allow billionaires to manipulate the financial system for their own benefit," she said. "Dogecoin should not be used as a currency by the U.S. government. It's speculative, volatile, and dangerous. This is not the kind of currency that should be associated with taxpayer dollars." Musk, ever the provocateur, responded with his characteristic bravado. "If we're going to talk about the future of currency, we need to start looking at digital assets. Dogecoin is just the beginning. The U.S. government needs to be more forward-thinking about the role of cryptocurrencies. Traditional systems are outdated and inefficient. If we don't start experimenting, we'll get left behind." Musk's comments only fueled the fire, with his supporters applauding his vision for the future while his detractors warned of the dangers of allowing a single individual to control the direction of a national economy. The debate over Dogecoin's role in government operations became a political flashpoint with no clear resolution in sight. Crockett takes the fight to the people. Amid the escalating political battle, Crockett realized that the only way to sway public opinion was to take the fight directly to the people. She launched a nationwide campaign using social media, town halls, and interviews to rally Americans against Musk's influence over government policies. Crockett's message was simple: no one person, no matter how powerful or wealthy, should be allowed to dictate the future of American governance. Crockett's campaign resonated with many, particularly those who felt that the rich and powerful were already too entrenched in the political system. "We need a government that works for all of us, not just the billionaires," Crockett declared at a rally in Houston. "This isn't just about Musk or Dogecoin. This is about the direction our country is headed. If we let this go unchecked, we're handing over control of our government to people who don't have our best interests at heart." As Crockett gained traction, Musk's allies began to push back. High-profile figures in the tech industry, as well as many members of Congress who supported Trump's agenda, rallied behind Musk, defending his reforms and dismissing Crockett's criticisms as political posturing. "Musk is doing what Washington has failed to do for years. He's bringing efficiency to government," said one of Musk's vocal supporters, Senator Ted Cruz. "We need more innovators in positions of power, not less." Musk's defenders painted Crockett as a politician who was trying to protect the status quo, while Crockett's supporters painted Musk as a corporate titan with no regard for the public good. The media began to cover the battle as a larger ideological struggle between the old guard and the new order. On one side, there were those who believed that the government needed to change with the times and embrace technological advancements. On the other, there were those who feared that the rise of tech moguls like Musk could lead to a corporatized government that catered only to the rich. The countdown to the ruling. As the months passed, the investigation into Musk's role in Doge continued. The Treasury Department's audit was taking longer than expected, and new information surfaced about Musk's involvement in government contracts linked to his companies. Meanwhile, Crockett's campaign was gaining momentum, and she was scheduled to testify before a special Senate committee that would decide the fate of Doge. The stakes had never been higher. Would Musk's innovative approach to government reform ultimately prevail, or would Crockett's calls for transparency and accountability win the day? The entire country seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for the decision that would determine the future of Musk's influence in Washington and whether his vision for a technologically driven government would be realized or dismantled. The Senate hearing that would determine the fate of Elon Musk's influence over Doge was scheduled for a tense Wednesday afternoon in May 2025. The room was filled to capacity with lawmakers, journalists, and spectators who had been eagerly following the drama surrounding Musk and Representative Jasmine Crockett. The stakes were higher than ever. At the center of the debate was the growing influence of Musk's companies, particularly his involvement with Dogecoin, and whether he could be trusted with such significant governmental power. Musk arrived at the Capitol with his characteristic confidence, flanked by his legal team and high-ranking supporters. His calm demeanor suggested that he was prepared for anything, even if the odds were stacked against him. On the other side of the aisle, Crockett was ready for a fight, determined to hold Musk accountable for what she saw as his unchecked influence over public policy. The hearing began with an opening statement from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who addressed the growing concerns about Musk's involvement with Doge and his public push for the cryptocurrency's adoption by the U.S. government. Elon Musk's vision for a tech-driven future has captivated many, Schumer began, but we must ensure that his vision doesn't come at the expense of the American people. Our government is meant to serve the people, not private interests. With that, the spotlight turned to Musk. I appreciate the opportunity to address these concerns. Musk began, his tone measured. I understand that there are concerns regarding the intersection of my private business interests and my role in government. But let me be clear. The reforms we have implemented through Doge are aimed at making government more efficient, reducing waste, and ultimately saving taxpayers money. That's the bottom line. Musk's supporters in the room nodded approvingly, while Crockett's allies exchanged skeptical glances. The debate was about to heat up. Crockett's direct challenge. Crockett wasted no time in pressing Musk on his financial interests in Dogecoin, as well as the broader implications of his role in government. Mr. Musk, she began, you have publicly endorsed and promoted Dogecoin on numerous occasions. You have made millions, if not billions, from your investments in the cryptocurrency. How can the American people trust that your involvement in Doge doesn't create a clear conflict of interest? When you talk about making government more efficient, is that truly about the people, or is it about advancing your financial interests? Musk responded quickly, it's about both. Yes, I have a financial stake in Dogecoin, but that doesn't mean I'm using my position to manipulate the system. The bottom line is that Doge can help modernize government operations, and I believe in its potential to bring transparency and efficiency. If you want to talk about conflicts of interest, let's talk about the decades of entrenched politicians who have done little to reform the system. If my involvement in Doge helps bring about much-needed change, then I believe it is a positive development for the country. Crockett shot back, but this isn't about reform, Elon. This is about power. You've built an empire on the back of innovation, and there's no question you've brought many good things to this country. But we cannot afford to let you or anyone control the machinery of our government. We've seen what happens when powerful individuals, whether in tech or finance, are allowed to run amok. The result is always the same. They use their influence to line their pockets at the expense of the people. Musk leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. I am not in this for the money, Jasmine. I'm here because the government is broken. If we don't start thinking differently, we will continue to fall behind other nations. The government's inefficiencies are costing taxpayers billions of dollars every year. I'm offering a way out of that cycle. You may not like the way I'm doing it, but I'm getting results. Crockett's retort was pointed. It's not just about results, Elon. It's about who gets to make the decisions. Right now, we have an oligarchy where a few people like you are able to manipulate markets, control government policy, and avoid scrutiny. If you're truly interested in reform, you'd be advocating for more oversight, more transparency, and more accountability. But instead, you're trying to turn the government into an extension of your private empire. A nation divided. The exchange between Crockett and Musk captivated the nation. News outlets across the country picked up on the drama, with pundits on both sides offering their take. On one hand, Musk's defenders saw him as a visionary, a tech mogul who had the courage to challenge the entrenched political system. On the other, his critics saw him as a dangerous figure who was exploiting government resources for his own financial gain. Polls began to show a stark divide in public opinion. Some Americans were inspired by Musk's boldness and his willingness to shake up the status quo. Others, particularly those on the left, feared the consolidation of power in the hands of one billionaire and the potential risks of allowing such an individual to shape the future of American governance. In a surprising move, President Trump, a longtime ally of Musk, came to his defense. Elon is doing something that Washington has failed to do for years. He's fixing the system, Trump declared in a tweet. The Democrats are just upset because they can't control him. He's the kind of leader this country needs. At the same time, a growing number of conservative voices began to question Musk's influence. Some Republican lawmakers, particularly those in the House Freedom Caucus, started to express concerns about the long-term implications of Musk's control over government policies, especially when it came to cryptocurrency. There was increasing fear that the push for Dogecoin could open the door for other cryptocurrencies to become deeply embedded in the fabric of government operations, potentially destabilizing the U.S. financial system. The turning point. As the Senate hearing came to a close, the committee members were left to deliberate. The debate over Musk's involvement with Doge had escalated beyond the issue of government reform. It was now about the integrity of the American political system itself. For Crockett, the battle was far from over. She continued to rally her supporters, urging them to make their voices heard. "This is our chance to stand up for the American people," she said in a statement after the hearing. "We cannot let billionaires take over our government. We need leaders who are accountable to the people, not to their own financial interests." Musk, meanwhile, remained resolute. He had spent years building his empire, and he was not about to back down now. He knew the fight wasn't just about one hearing or one vote. It was about his legacy and the future of the country. He was playing for keeps, and he intended to win. The Senate's decision was looming. Would they side with Musk and his vision for a new tech-driven government? Or would they listen to Crockett's calls for greater accountability and transparency? The battle was far from over, and the American people were watching closely, waiting for the next chapter in this high-stakes political drama. As the final votes in the Senate hearing drew near, the atmosphere in Washington, D.C. became increasingly charged. The battle between Elon Musk and Representative Jasmine Crockett had reached its climax, and the outcome would reverberate throughout the political landscape. The entire nation was glued to the proceedings, knowing that whatever decision was made would have profound implications on both the future of American governance and the role of billionaires in shaping policy. The final vote? The Senate session stretched late into the night, with members deliberating in private, weighing the merits of Musk's arguments for government reform against the concerns raised by Crockett and other critics. In the final hours, a surprise twist added even more uncertainty to the already tense situation. A leaked memo from within the Senate revealed that several prominent Republicans who had previously supported Musk were now reconsidering their stance, especially after new details about Musk's financial ties to cryptocurrency were uncovered. The memo stated that some senators were now questioning whether Musk's push for Doge was less about reform and more about consolidating power in his own hands. Crockett, aware of this shift, worked tirelessly behind the scenes, calling her colleagues and rallying public support. She released a powerful statement to the press, accusing Musk of using his influence to subvert democracy and of attempting to create a new class of billionaires who were accountable to no one but themselves. She emphasized the danger of allowing someone with such immense power over financial markets and government initiatives to operate without sufficient oversight. The hours leading up to the vote were a whirlwind of lobbying, media appearances, and closed-door negotiations. Musk, on the other hand, remained calm. He knew that his vision for the future was at risk, but he also knew that he had already made a lasting impact on the debate over government efficiency and technological innovation. As the clock ticked toward the vote, it seemed as though the country was on the precipice of a historical turning point. The Senate vote was a watershed moment, one that would ultimately decide the fate of Musk's involvement in government initiatives and his relationship with Doge. The results were delivered late in the evening, and they sent shockwaves across the country. The motion to allow Musk to continue his influence over the government's push for cryptocurrency adoption, particularly Doge, was narrowly defeated. It was a stunning turn of events. While Musk had managed to secure the backing of many Republican senators, the growing concern over his potential conflicts of interest and the powerful backlash from Democrats and independent voters had proven too much to overcome. The vote was closer than anyone had anticipated, but in the end, the Senate sided with Crockett's call for increased transparency and regulation. The consequences of the Senate vote were felt across the country. It sent a powerful message about the need for greater oversight in both the public and private sectors. For the first time, Americans were forced to confront the fact that tech giants like Musk could hold immense influence over their lives, not just through the products they sold, but through their involvement in shaping government policy. The debate over cryptocurrency, particularly Dogecoin, did not end with the vote. In fact, it sparked an ongoing national conversation about the future of money, the role of government in regulating digital currencies, and the ethical implications of allowing private companies to shape public policy. While Dogecoin's future in government operations remained uncertain, the conversation had been irrevocably changed. Looking ahead, as the dust settled, it became clear that the Musk-Crockett battle was just one chapter in a much larger story. The role of technology and innovation in government policy would continue to be a major issue in the years to come. Whether Musk would return to the political fray or focus entirely on his business ventures remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: his influence over the national conversation had only just begun. For now, the American people had sent a message: the government was theirs to control, not the billionaires who sought to reshape it in their image. And as for Musk, he had learned a valuable lesson in the complex interplay between business, government, and the people they served. The future was uncertain, but the debate was far from over. The consequences of the Senate vote were felt across the country. It sent a powerful message about the need for greater oversight in both the public and private sectors. For the first time, Americans were forced to confront the fact that tech giants like Musk could hold immense influence over their lives, not just through the products they sold, but through their involvement in shaping government policy. The debate over cryptocurrency, particularly Dogecoin, did not end with the vote. In fact, it sparked an ongoing national conversation about the future of money, the role of government in regulating digital currencies, and the ethical implications of allowing private companies to shape public policy. While Dogecoin's future in government operations remained uncertain, the conversation had been irrevocably changed. Looking ahead, as the dust settled, it became clear that the Musk-Crockett battle was just one chapter in a much larger story. The role of technology and innovation in government policy would continue to be a major issue in the years to come. Whether Musk would return to the political fray or focus entirely on his business ventures remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: his influence over the national conversation had only just begun. For now, the American people had sent a message: the government was theirs to control, not the billionaires who sought to reshape it in their image. And as for Musk, he had learned a valuable lesson in the complex interplay between business, government, and the people they served. The future was uncertain, but the debate was far from over.